Right now, in private Facebook groups, Telegram channels, and late-night YouTube live streams, thousands of people are being told the same thing. The Iraqi dinar is about to revalue. Any day now, maybe even tonight. Some say the new rate will be 3.71. Others say 4.81. A few claim they've seen insider documents proving it's already happened. It just hasn't been announced yet. People have spent their savings. Some have spent their retirement funds, all believing that a stack of Iraqi dinar bills sitting in a drawer could turn them into millionaires overnight. But here's the question nobody in those groups once asked out loud. If this revaluation has been about to happen for over 20 years, why hasn't it? In the next few minutes, we're going to walk through where this claim came from, how the theory is supposed to work, what the actual evidence shows, and why this story keeps coming back, year after year, rate after rate. Stay with us, because by the end, you'll understand exactly how this claim spreads and what it actually takes to verify a claim like this yourself. To understand this claim, we have to go back to 2003. After the invasion of Iraq, the old Iraqi dinar, the one printed under Saddam Hussein's government, was replaced with a new currency. At the time, the exchange rate was extremely low compared to the US dollar, largely because of war, sanctions, and economic instability. Around this same period, a market emerged, mostly online, of currency dealers selling Iraqi dinar directly to everyday American consumers. The pitch was simple. Iraq is rebuilding. Iraq has oil. Once the country stabilizes, its currency will revalue, meaning its value compared to the dollar will rise dramatically. And if you're holding dinar when that happens, your investment could multiply overnight. This idea took off in online forums and later in Facebook groups, YouTube channels, and Telegram chats. People began calling themselves dinarians or dinar investors. Certain individuals in these communities, often referred to informally as dinar gurus, began posting regular updates, claiming to have insider banking contacts, government sources, or leaked documents. Predictions of an imminent revaluation, the RV, have been made repeatedly since roughly 2003. Regulators who have tracked this claim for over a decade describe it in blunt terms. The Alabama Securities Commission has publicly called the Iraqi dinar investment opportunity a scam that has existed for more than a decade and has repeatedly regained popularity. The Texas State Securities Board has issued similar public investor alerts, noting how long-lived and recurring this exact claim has been. What's important to notice here is the pattern, not any single claim. New predicted rates appear. Old predictions quietly disappear, and the story continues. This is the environment the 4.81 rate claim comes from. It isn't a new phenomenon. It's simply the latest version of a claim that has existed in different forms for over 20 years. So the real question isn't, is 4.81 the number? The real question is, how is a national currency's value actually determined? And does the RV theory match how that process works in the real world? That's what we'll unpack next. Texas State Securities Board, Investor Alert. Guess who's coming to Dinar? Alabama Securities Commission, Investor Alert on Bitcoin and Dinar schemes. Here's the theory, as it's usually explained in these communities. Step 1. Iraq's government or central bank supposedly plans to revalue its currency, essentially deciding, by official policy, that one Iraqi dinar is now worth significantly more US dollars than it was before. Step 2. This new rate would apply globally and instantly, meaning banks and currency exchanges everywhere would recognize the new value at the same time. Step 3. Anyone holding physical Iraqi dinar bills could exchange them at that new, dramatically higher rate, turning a few $100s in dinar into a life-changing sum. It's presented almost like a light switch. One announcement, and everyone holding the currency wins overnight. Now here's the part that matters. In the real world, currency values don't usually work this way. Exchange rates are typically set by markets, supply, demand, trade, foreign investment, interest rates, and a country's overall economic output. Even when a government does intervene in its own currency's value, called a managed or pegged exchange rate, changes are usually gradual, tied to specific economic reforms, and don't apply retroactively to make old currency holdings instantly more valuable in the way the claim suggests. The Iraqi dinar is a real-world example of this. The International Monetary Fund classifies Iraq's exchange rate system as a conventional peg, meaning the central bank of Iraq sets and manages the rate directly, rather than letting it float freely on international markets. Since February 2023, that official rate has hovered around 1,300 to 1,320 dinar per US dollar, and Iraq's own government confirmed 1,300 dinar per dollar as the official budget rate again for 2026. That's a routine fiscal policy number set for government accounting. Not a surprise announcement, and not a retroactive windfall for outside currency holders. The RV theory essentially proposes something economists don't describe as a standard event, an instant, dramatic, one-time jump in value announced like a surprise reveal, benefiting people who happen to be holding the paper currency at that moment. That gap between how the claim says currency value works and how currency value is actually determined is the first sign that something doesn't add up. So let's look directly at the evidence. International Monetary Fund, Iraq Article 4 Country Reports Exchange Rate Regime Classification. Central Bank of Iraq, Official Exchange Rate Announcements, 2023 to 2026. Shafaq News, Iraq fixes 2026 budget at 1,300 dinars per dollar January 2026. Let's be fair and look at this the way a researcher would. What evidence exists, and does it support the claim? First, has this revaluation happened before, as predicted? No. Predictions of an imminent RV have circulated since around 2003, and regulators tracking the claim describe it as one of the longest-running currency investment stories in the U.S., resurfacing in waves of popularity roughly every few years. None of the previously announced "it's happening this week" claims have resulted in the outcome described, a dramatic, globally recognized upward revaluation benefiting outside dinar holders. Second, is there a verifiable official government or central bank announcement confirming a 4.81 rate? No. As of the most recent confirmed data, the Central Bank of Iraq's official rate sits at roughly 1,300 to 1,320 dinar per US dollar, a rate that has been essentially unchanged since February 2023 and was reaffirmed again for the 2026 federal budget. That works out to a small fraction of 1 US cent per dinar, nowhere near 3.71 or 4.81. And it's worth noting the direction of recent movement. In mid-2025, after the U.S. Treasury restricted a number of Iraqi banks from U.S. dollar transactions over money laundering concerns, Iraq's informal street exchange rate actually got weaker, briefly trading as high as roughly 1,570 dinar per dollar, meaning the dinar needed more units to equal $1. The opposite of a revaluation. No official Iraqi, American, or international financial body has confirmed a 4.81 rate. Third, who is making these claims? Typically, the specific rate predictions 3.71, 4.81, or other figures circulate through informal online communities, YouTube commentary channels, and paid subscription groups, not through official central banking channels, treasury announcements, or established financial institutions. When a claim about a national currency only exists in informal online spaces and not in the official channels that would actually control or report such a decision, that's a meaningful gap. Fourth, does the claim rely on insider or anonymous sourcing? Frequently, yes. Many of these predictions are attributed to unnamed banking contacts, unverified leaked documents, or someone who knows someone. This kind of sourcing cannot be independently verified, which means it cannot be treated as evidence. It can only be treated as a claim. Fifth, and maybe most telling, the pattern of moving goalposts. When a predicted date or rate doesn't happen, the explanation is rarely this theory was wrong. Instead, a new date or new rate is proposed, often with a new reason for the earlier delay: political interference, a bank conspiracy, or paperwork issues. A theory that keeps adjusting its prediction after every failure, without ever being confirmed by an outside verifiable source, is behaving less like an economic forecast and more like a story that resists being disproven. None of this means every person discussing Iraqi dinar is acting in bad faith. Many genuinely believe the theory. But belief isn't the same as evidence. And after 2 decades, the evidence that would confirm this claim still doesn't exist in any verifiable official form. So if there's no strong evidence behind it, why does this claim keep spreading? That leads us to an important part of this story: the ecosystem built around the prediction itself. Central Bank of Iraq, official exchange rate data, 2023 to 2026. Shafaq News and 964 Media, coverage of the 2026 Iraqi federal budget exchange rate, January 2026. The New Arab AP News, coverage of U.S. Treasury restrictions on Iraqi banks and resulting parallel market rate movement, 2024 to 2025. Alabama Securities Commission and Texas State Securities Board, investor alerts on Iraqi dinar schemes. Here's something worth understanding, separate from whether the RV happens. Predicting it can be profitable regardless of the outcome. In many online dinar communities, income isn't necessarily generated from the currency itself. It can come from the audience built around discussing it. This can include paid subscription newsletters, ad revenue from frequent video uploads, affiliate links to currency exchange sellers, and donations or tip features from loyal followers. This creates something researchers of financial misinformation often point to: an incentive structure where continuing the story is more profitable than the story actually coming true. If a channel or newsletter's core content is the RV is coming soon, then regular updates, new predicted dates, and fresh urgency keep an audience engaged and returning. A confirmed final answer, RV or no RV, would end that ongoing engagement. This isn't a claim about any specific individual's intentions, and we're not naming or attacking any channel here. It's simply a pattern worth being aware of. Anytime content is structured around a prediction that never fully resolves, and that structure happens to generate ongoing revenue, it's worth asking whether the incentive is to inform you or to keep you watching. Currency dealers selling physical Iraqi dinar to retail buyers are a separate but related part of this ecosystem. Regulators have documented cases where these markups were substantial. In one federal case described by prosecutors, a dinar selling firm called BH Group charged customers an average markup of about 20% over the currency's actual exchange value, meaning the seller profited immediately from the sale itself, regardless of whether any future revaluation ever happened. None of this proves bad intent on every individual's part, but understanding how attention and money flow around a claim helps explain why a theory can survive for 20 years without ever being confirmed. The ecosystem around the prediction doesn't actually require the prediction to come true in order to keep functioning. So what happens when people act on this claim anyway? That's where the real-world consequences come in. CNBC, inside a $24 million investment scam by the Iraqi dinar, 2015, citing U.S. Department of Justice prosecutors, Northern District of Ohio. Because so much money has moved through this claim over the past 2 decades, it has drawn attention from regulators and law enforcement, and there's now an actual paper trail of cases to look at. In 2016, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission filed a complaint against a Utah man, Joshua J. Hansen, accusing him of running a dinar-based investment scheme from 2009 to 2016. According to the SEC's complaint, Hansen told roughly 46 investors he had special security clearances to invest in Iraqi dinar and oil contracts with foreign governments, and promised returns ranging from 10% up to 15,000% within 90 days, describing the payout as not a matter of if, but when. That kind of guaranteed, dramatic, time-boxed return is exactly the pattern regulators warn investors to be skeptical of. Separately, the FBI and IRS investigated a company called Sterling Currency Group, which also operated under the names Dinar Banker and GID Associates, for its role in selling Iraqi dinar to investors. On October 9, 2018, 3 men connected to that company, Tyson Rame, James Shaw, and Frank Bell, were convicted of conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud. Rame and Bell were also convicted of making false statements to federal agents. In a separate federal case out of the Northern District of Ohio, prosecutors described a scheme in which a group of men raised roughly $24 million from investors by selling Iraqi dinar through a firm called BH Group, in some cases using fabricated military service stories to build credibility with potential investors. The U.S. attorney overseeing that case, Stephen Dettelbach, said publicly at the time that people were soliciting millions of dollars from investors just making stuff up. At the state level, securities regulators in Alabama, Texas, and Washington state have all published consumer investor alerts specifically naming the Iraqi dinar investment opportunity as a long-running scam pattern, warning residents that dealing in unregistered foreign currency investments carries little to no consumer protection if something goes wrong. On the banking side, major U.S. banks have also been explicit about this. Bank of America states directly, in its own published currency exchange FAQ, that it does not buy or sell Iraqi dinar banknotes and currently has no plans to offer that service. Separately, Iraq's own banking system has faced real disruption in recent years. In 2024, and again into 2025 and 2026, the U.S. Treasury Department restricted a number of Iraqi banks from participating in U.S. dollar transactions over money laundering compliance concerns, a development that made dollars in Iraq's own economy harder to access. Not a sign of an imminent currency windfall for outside dinar holders. The consistent theme across all of these cases is the same. Be cautious of any investment opportunity that promises a guaranteed, dramatic return based on an event that hasn't been confirmed by an official government or financial authority. That's not a judgment about every individual who owns dinar. It's a pattern regulators have flagged repeatedly, in public on the record, and that risk isn't abstract. Behind these numbers are real people. Let's talk about them. U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission complaint against Joshua J. Hansen, 2016, as reported by Forbes. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Victim Information Notice regarding Sterling Currency Group, Dinar Banker GD Associates. Convictions of Tyson Rame, James Shaw, and Frank Bell, October 9, 2018. CNBC, inside a $24 million investment scam by the Iraqi dinar, 2015, citing the U.S. Attorney's Office, Northern District of Ohio. Alabama Securities Commission, Texas State Securities Board, Washington State Department of Financial Institutions, public investor alerts on Iraqi dinar schemes. Bank of America, foreign currency exchange information, and FAQ bankofamerica.com. The New Arab AP News, reporting on U.S. Treasury restrictions on Iraqi banks 2024 to 2026. It's easy to talk about currency theories in the abstract. It's harder, and more important, to talk about what happens to the people who believe them. In the federal cases we just covered, regulators and prosecutors weren't describing hypothetical harm. The SEC's case against Joshua J. Hansen and the Ohio prosecution of the BH Group scheme both involved real investors who collectively put millions of real dollars into these currency schemes, based on promised returns that were never delivered. Those aren't isolated incidents. They're two of the more visible legal cases documenting a much larger pattern of everyday individuals purchasing large volumes of Iraqi dinar in hopes of a revaluation. What we can say generally, without needing a specific individual example, is this: financial hope is powerful. For people facing real financial stress, medical bills, debt, retirement uncertainty, a claim that promises a dramatic, simple solution can feel less like a gamble and more like a lifeline. That emotional context is part of why claims like this spread so effectively. It's not that people are careless. It's that the claim is speaking directly to a real, human need for financial security. This is exactly why patience and verification matter so much here. Not to dismiss anyone's hope, but to protect it by making sure that hope is placed somewhere it can actually be supported by evidence. The goal of this documentary isn't to mock anyone who has believed this claim. It's to offer the kind of independent, evidence-based look that can help people make informed decisions before committing more of their financial future to an unconfirmed prediction. So if the promise of a sudden windfall isn't something that can currently be verified, what should someone do instead if they're looking to build financial security? Let's talk about that. U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission complaint against Joshua J. Hansen, 2016. CNBC, inside a $24 million investment scam by the Iraqi Dinar, 2015. If the appeal of the RV story is financial security, a way out of debt, a real retirement, a safety net, that's a completely understandable goal. The issue isn't the goal, it's the method. Financial professionals generally point to a few consistent, verifiable principles for building financial security over time. Reducing high-interest debt, building an emergency fund, contributing consistently to diversified retirement accounts, and avoiding concentrating a large portion of savings into a single speculative asset, especially one tied to unconfirmed predictions. Before making any investment decision, in currency, stocks, crypto, or anything else, it's worth asking a simple set of questions. Is this confirmed by an official, checkable source, not just an online community? Is the person or channel telling me this financially benefiting from my continued belief in it, regardless of outcome? Would this claim hold up if I brought it to an independent, licensed financial advisor with no stake in the outcome? Consulting a licensed, independent financial advisor, someone who has no financial incentive tied to your decision, is one of the most reliable ways to evaluate any investment opportunity, including currency-related claims like this one. None of this requires giving up hope for a better financial future. It just means directing that hope towards strategies that are transparent, verifiable, and supported by outside evidence, not toward a prediction that has remained unconfirmed for more than 2 decades. That brings us to where this all leaves us. So, is the 4.81 rate confirmed? Based on everything we've reviewed, there is no verifiable, official confirmation of that rate, or of an imminent Iraqi dinar revaluation from the Central Bank of Iraq, the IMF, or any major financial institution. The most recent confirmed official rate, reaffirmed for Iraq's 2026 federal budget, remains around 1,300 dinar per US dollar, essentially unchanged since February 2023 and set through ordinary fiscal and monetary policy, not a surprise global announcement. What we do know is this: the theory has been predicted repeatedly for over 20 years without official confirmation, and it has already produced real, documented federal fraud cases, including SEC and Department of Justice actions resulting in criminal convictions. The way it claims currency value works doesn't match how currency value is actually determined in practice. And there's a real, ongoing ecosystem of content and sales built around keeping the prediction alive, regardless of whether it ever happens. None of that means you can't do your own research. or that people who believe this are foolish. It means that before making any financial decision, especially one involving your savings, the standard should always be independent, verifiable, official evidence. Not urgency, not insider claims, not a countdown that keeps resetting. If this video helped you think through a claim like this more clearly, consider sharing it with someone who might be facing pressure to make a fast financial decision. And if you want more calm, evidence-based breakdowns of financial claims like this one, subscribe, because separating hope from evidence is exactly what we do here. Stay informed, stay patient, and always verify before you invest. This content is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice.